Have you ever felt like someone was watching you? Listening into your intimate conversations in your living room, in your kitchen, and even in your car, making you careful of every word you say, and even the facial expressions you make. That feeling that someone is watching, someone is listening. Relax. I'm not talking about the NSA. I'm talking about my 2-year-old daughter, Serena. She's the one watching and listening to everything we do and say. You know, one of the things that parents cherish in long-lasting memory is their child's first word. Serena's first word was Xbox. I guess we do speak to it a lot. Xbox pause, Xbox play, Xbox next episode. And now that she's 2 years old, she doesn't just say Xbox, she says, Xbox, play Doc McStuffins, her favorite show. It's amazing to see how quickly her language is progressing. And early on, my wife and I decided that we wanted Serena to be bilingual. See, my parents came to the United States from Pakistan in the 1980s, and they brought over their language, Urdu. And so we speak it between ourselves so that Serena can learn it too. And I guess we're 50% successful in that, because she says hot and thanda, which means cold. She says big and chota, which means small. But aside from their language, my parents came over with a set of values that defined their culture and ultimately determined the expectations they set for me, their firstborn son. If you know anything about South Asian parents, there's only 3 occupations that exist in the world. Doctor, lawyer, or engineer. Everything else, according to my dad, is batolebazi, which is basically the Urdu word for BS. If it was up to my parents, today I'd be standing before you talking about culture, the cultivation of bacteria, tissues, cells, etc., in an artificial medium containing nutrients. But after laboring away at bio, chem, and physics for 2 years right here at NIU, repeating classes, being put on academic probation, I was finally dismissed. I was literally a college dropout. You know, like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, but who makes those comparisons, right? And, you know, how there's the left and right side of the brain. Well, I was being forced to use the left side of my brain, the side that's responsible for numbers, formulas, logic. But apparently I was more in tune with things like recognizing faces, emotional intelligence, and creativity. The stuff that I was told did not matter. And I was nervous. I knew that soon people would catch on, that I wasn't a bio major anymore. I wasn't studying for the MCAT or preparing for med school. And I was worried as I sat across the dinner table from my father, physician for the past 20 years, the smartest man in the universe in my book. And I tried to explain to him that I had changed my major to family, consumer, and nutrition sciences. You know, Dad, I really want to study the science of marriage and families, child health and nutrition, and he stopped me right there. You think this is some sort of a science? What you're describing sounds like home economics. You're going to college to become a homemaker? But what is a homemaker? Someone who takes care of the home, raises the kids, cooks. I love to cook, so much so that I started my own YouTube channel with all my cooking adventures. Don't look it up, it's very amateur and unprofessional. You know, back in the day when humans were hunters and gatherers, the men were expected to go out and hunt and bring that meat and put it on the table, and the women were expected to cook, along with holding down the fort and taking care of the kids. And essentially, in the pre-World War II America, cooking was seen as a woman's job. Nothing special, just a means to an end of being fed. But after World War II, when the soldiers came back, they sought to put their newfound skills to work. They learned how to cook because they were away from their families. And for the first time in American history, cooking classes were offered to men. Before this, they were only offered to women who sought to earn a meager living, maybe as a cook or a maid for a wealthy family. And it wasn't until the men blessed the cooking world that it actually turned into a profession. And even today, day-to-day cooking is seen as a woman's job. Nothing special. But professional cooking is dominated by men and is highly respected. But those men who decided to pursue cooking as a profession and as a career, they pushed the limits of the cultural expectations of masculinity at that time. And as a result, inspired many men to contribute to their families in that manner. And so as I was having this conversation with my dad, I knew that I wasn't living up to his expectations. See, the expectation was that I would major in a hard science, go to med school, become a doctor, save money, buy a car and a house, get married, have 2.5 kids, and retire at the plump, juicy, pruny age of 75. All in that order. The American dream. But the only thing that I was dreaming about was her. You know, the person I was going to spend the rest of my life with. I had found the one. And interestingly enough, her parents were also South Asian immigrants from India. And I approached her father in the most Bollywood-esque fashion and posed him the question, "May I have your daughter's hand in marriage?" And he replied with a question of his own with the most confused look on his face. "What are you going to feed her?" You know, implying the cultural expectation that, you know, the man is supposed to provide the food, the clothing, the shelter. And even my friends, when I handed them the wedding invitation, the most common response that I got was, "Wow, that sucks," with a look of pity in their eyes. See, on one side of my world, the expectation was that I would get a job, save money, and then get married. And in the meantime, in between time, I shouldn't even look at girls. Don't even think about them, let alone hook up. But on the other side of the world where I also existed, in my American culture, the expectation for a 21-year-old guy like me was to bounce around from club to club, from bar to bar, from girl to girl. But I wasn't doing any of those things. I defied all cultural expectations. Apparently, there was no way of life where you could join in holy matrimony while being broke as a joke. But had I been a woman who decided to major in family, consumer, and nutrition sciences, get engaged at 19 and married at 21, nobody would bat an eye. It was because my decisions and my choices were culturally degrading to my masculinity. That's why society had a problem with it. You see, cultural expectations put us into these shells and boxes. And only if we crack open those shells and rip open those boxes do we actually progress as a humanity. Yes, this concept is that big. I'm talking global impact, folks. You see, the idea that women should just stay at home, rear 3 to 6 kids, operate their kitchens as some sort of professional restaurant or a 24/7 IHOP, the concept that women shouldn't be allowed to drive or pursue an education, this is all due to cultural expectations. Cultural expectations oftentimes limit us from achieving our true potential and fulfilling our purpose in life. Not only that, but they give rise to double standards. Like in American culture, if a man were to have multiple partners in a given time, well, he's seen as living his life. His peers look up to him. But if a woman were to behave in the same exact way, well, she's seen as morally degrading herself. Another widespread idea across cultures is that men should be confident and aggressive more so than women. And this is accepted in the workplace, in public, and at home, even in the extreme. But what were to happen if we push the limits of those cultural expectations? What if a woman were to be confident and aggressive naturally in a positive way? How would that impact the individual? How would that impact society? One, if a woman were to be naturally confident and aggressive and in a positive way and accepted as such, then she would achieve higher positions in society and earn more for what they do. And in essence, she would be able to better contribute to their families and their communities from a financial perspective. And two, if men were not expected to be aggressive or led to overcompensate with false confidence, then we would see a dramatic decline in domestic violence issues and other mental health concerns. Now, I'm not bashing on traditional gender roles. If the cultural expectation provides you structure, then so be it. And if that is the route that you want to take, then that's okay. But many of us are limited by these cultural expectations. And in essence, we don't get to fulfill our true purpose in life. The most in-your-face change occurred when I decided to be a stay-at-home dad. I let go of my 3-year stretch in social services and decided to put my MBA to use. I started an agency for speakers, artists, and performers. And since I was going to be working from home on my phone and on my laptop, I thought, why not take care of my 18-month-old daughter as well? Why send her off to daycare? And this is what that looked like. And I learned so much. Most invaluable experience. But my dad was probably doing a facepalm like, man, this guy actually became a homemaker. I split my time between my business, my daughter, cooking, cleaning, and it's amazing. It's an amazing experience. She wakes up in the morning all cranky, looking like a little monster. Then I clean her up, and she gets so excited as we decide what we're going to eat for breakfast. Boiling egg, or pancakes with blueberries, or toast with peanut butter. And I see her advancing in her social skills every time I take her to the library, every time I take her to the playground. And, it's an emotional roller coaster for me. Sometimes I'm so annoyed I want to hide all her toys because they make so many sounds. Toys with sounds, I can't do them. And other times, I'm so proud of her, and she's just this magnificent beauty that I want to cry. And, one of the other expectations for men is that we shouldn't show emotions. And that's not the expectation just for men, but for little boys, for young boys. Don't cry like a little girl, as if that's some sort of insult. And man up. Even though studies after studies show that people who express their emotions have better mental health, whether it's journaling, whether it's blogging or talking to a close friend, letting out those emotions is key. And so cultural expectations can not only just limit us from achieving our true potential, but they can even cause harm. Culture is meant to evolve, and only if we push the limits of those cultural expectations can we help that culture evolve. Cultural expectations are born of this idea that there's a mathematical formula to life. If you go to school, you'll get a job. If you comply with authorities, you won't get a beating. If you add salt, it'll taste better. But that's not true, is it? When we push the limits of cultural expectations, we see positive changes in gender relations, in family dynamics, and we find solutions to problems we didn't even know existed before. Thank you.